Hi guys, welcome to Antique Sprinklers. Today we're going to talk about Western Brass Works. They are a company I didn't pay much attention to when I was in the irrigation industry, although I was aware of their work. I was aware of their in-house brands, and I had sort of an awareness that they made a lot of the sprinklers that other manufacturers sold. But it's only been as a collector that I've really grown an appreciation for them. So Western Brass Works was founded by a guy named Walter V. Storm back in 1932, and he was a young guy then. He was 28. And he'd been born in West Texas. Prior to World War I, and actually during the war, he broke horses that the U.S. Cavalry used. So pretty rough and ready guy. Known as a big adventurer and hunter. He spent 3 months hunting in Africa one time with the guy who founded Champion Sprinklers, who'd worked for him at one point, and some other folks, some doctors from the Los Angeles area. So getting back to his early life, he left Texas, went to New York City, attended NYU, had a business after graduating for a while that made ash can carts. I can imagine that these are wheeled carts that you'd put basically a garbage can in. And at the age of 28, went out to Los Angeles to earn his fortune, and that's when he founded Western Brass Works. And they made all kinds of brass parts for many different industries. And during World War II, they made brass shell casings. As you can imagine, those were in very, very high demand. And then after the war, went back to irrigation and some of the other industries they were serving. And it's then that, especially as you get into the 1950s, that you start to see impact sprinklers they were making with that really iconic look that would endure for decades. So, as you think about their in-house brands, an early brand was this Sturdy Jet, and this guy is basically made out of pot metal. But you'll see in a patent I have for bearings, the design emerging in the mid to late 50s of this lever. The frame with just the single post on it, it's open on the back end, and they stuck with that for decades, as I mentioned. And so their in-house brands were Rain Troll, Westag after Rain Troll, and some of those were full lines as well. I found an archived version of the Westag website from about 2000, and it had rotors that looked a lot like the Safety Lawn ball drive rotors. They had plastic case 1 1/4 pop-up impact rotors, full line of quick couplers, of electronic valves, just everything you would need, spray heads that are both plastic and brass. So whether they were partnering with other manufacturers to fill that line out or making the things themselves, they'd intended to be able to fill every single irrigation need. So some of the brands that they private labeled their sprinklers for, and here before you see one example of every single different brand and style that I have from Westag. But Aquadial, that was an irrigation manufacturer that was owned by Clay Valve. Some of you guys in the industry will know that they make really high-end pressure reducing, pressure sustaining valves. Companies like Rainomat and their Pelican line of sprinklers. The most recent one I got is this really cool Orbit Jet that just runs like a dream. Nelson, meaning LR Nelson. I've heard that the Nelson Ag Sprinkler Company from Washington State also had some sort of a relationship with Western Brass. I just haven't been able to find any independent verification of that. You'll see Toro, Weathermatic. Let's try that again. That's a Rain Troll. No, this guy's going to be the Weathermatic right here, yeah. Weathermatic. you know, virtually everyone except for Buckner and Rainbird, you know, Buckner, even though in the 1 inch and 1 1/4 would sell a couple out of the Western Brass line. A friend of mine who visited their foundry while they were still open just remembers seeing miles and miles of impact sprinklers. And let's see what else we got here, just to make sure I don't forget anybody. That's Pelican again. There's a really unique one right here. I don't know if this was a one-off they did for somebody, I can't imagine. But this is More Rain with Rain spelled R-A-N-E. And there's a company of that exact same name, I think they're in the Pacific Northwest, that manufactures aluminum pipe and fittings for that and is in the irrigation industry sort of in that way. So either there was another company like that or they made this for them back, say, in the 1960s or 70s. And on a lot of these that are private labeled for other companies, you'll see that it says Western Brass Works on the bearing. And some of them will even say Rain Troll, where they had intended to use a bearing for their own product. A lot of these plastic nozzles that they'll use in some of their sprinklers will also say Rain Troll on them, even if the lever has a different manufacturer in it. So we have Rain Troll again, L.R. Nelson. Gosh, what else do we have here? This P31 is going to be a Nelson. And so you start to pick up, Champion, obviously, given that they had their start with Western Brass. And you start to notice that there were some companies that just adopted the Western Brass model numbers, you know, and used numbers like U61 for this style of sprinkler. You see Rain Troll doing that. You also see Champion doing that. And then you have the companies like, you know, Toro that use their own model numbers. This is a 432, which fits kind of the way Toro's cataloging of sprinklers works. This is another Rain Troll, so it's going to have a Western Brass moniker on it. Rainomat used their own model number systems. You've got like the 51, the 64, and the 61. And then Western Brass also landed the contract with Caltrans for some period of time. And I talked to people about it, and they say that Rainbird had that forever. But you'll notice on some of these sprinklers, they have locking collars, and that was a big part of the California Department of Transportation specification. They did not want people changing the adjustment of these guys, so you had these arc stops that were set with screws in them that you would tighten up, and then it was just a little harder to vandalize them. And each of them would have Cal Dot etched into the bearing, and usually would have the specification as part of the model number on the lever. So this is a 61 AST-LC, and the LC is locking collars. So I was delighted to get some of those, and even with all the use they got, you know, with Caltrans, here's another one. Many of them still work great. In fact, where is it? Oh, this guy right here. This is a Westag, which was one of, as I mentioned, one of Western Brass Works, you know, in-house brands. And this thing, I think, is a miracle sprinkler. It came in a batch of a bunch of these 3/4 inch part circle adjustable impacts. And you could tell that they were all intended to have this sort of PJ style tube on them, but the overwhelming majority were missing the tube itself. And many of them had bent levers and just weren't going to work without a, you know, the replacement of a lot of parts. And this beautiful Westag sprinkler that you can see has really been through the ringer works like a champ, and it's one of the ones you'll see as we get into showing these things in operation. I'm trying to just quickly remember, I should have made a little list, whether I've missed any of the manufacturers that sold their stuff, but Imperial, gosh, Weathermatic, really anybody that was selling a a brass impact sprinkler other than, as I mentioned, Buckner and Rainbird back in the day. That's where they were getting them. So they made, you know, probably millions of sprinklers, I would guess. Maybe that's a slight exaggeration, but it can't be an exaggeration by much. So what became of Western Brass? In 1998, they purchased Buckner and folded them into the family under Storm Industries, you know, which had taken the name of, you know, the founder, Walter Storm. And they later added Superior Controls around 2006. Somewhere in the 1990s, they bought Imperial, and eventually, you know, kind of winnowed down the product lines to where it now mostly consists of some brass gravity reach sprinklers over quick couplers, Superior controllers, that's Sterling series of controllers, and both Superior and Buckner valves. And I might have missed a couple of things in there, but that's really the extent of the product line today. So it's compact. It probably serves the company well that they're not trying to be all things to all people anymore. There's only a handful of companies that can really do that these days in every part of irrigation, from ag through golf. But they have a nice niche there. As for the parent company itself, gosh, they're involved in everything. So you have their manufacturing division that, you know, it's now called Superior is how they brand the irrigation stuff, but there's also, I think, Kingston Tools, something like that. Just an old Los Angeles tool manufacturing company. There's a controls company, and I know I'm going to miss some of their stuff. They have a division that is into real estate investing fairly heavily. They have a division that does venture capital, interestingly enough, and they've invested in chain restaurants and just a variety of things. So today, you know, that company that Walter Storm started in LA, sort of at the height of the Great Depression, is now it is a multinational through their controls company organization that is highly diversified. There are still descendants of Walter Storm on their board of directors, I can see by their website, and I'm sure he'd be very pleased, because I think at his heart he was a businessman and a manufacturer second. So that's my story about Western Brass. As always, you know, there's people out there watching who know so much more than I do about any of the topics that I try to take on here. But like I said, I did not pay attention to these guys when I was working in irrigation. I wasn't really involved in ag that much, and you know, above ground impact sprinklers were not all that interesting to me. But I was aware of West Ag as a company. Oh, I did want to mention one other thing. If you see a quick coupler with sort of a silver metal top, very plain silver metal top on it in any product line, that is a Western Brass quick coupler. And you know, earlier this year I was on vacation with my wife down in Miami for a nice long weekend down there, and we took in some of the sites, and I have a couple pictures of some Western Brass quick couplers that have obviously been in the ground a while that I'll tack on here as well, just to try to round out the offering. But as I was saying, if you know more about the company, if you know more about the various ins and outs of the products that came and went, please feel free to leave a comment. I love learning new things, especially when I happen to put my foot in my mouth and you guys correct me. I think that's really awesome. So with that, I would just encourage you to check out the playlist I have of other folks who are making content. And if you do happen to have some level of appreciation for this video, if you'd give it a thumbs up, that'll just mean that more folks get to see it. And so with that, let's get out of the way and show a handful of these anyway. Not all of them, but you know, a number of them in operation. Thanks again for watching.